There is a stretch of land in the Uinta Basin of northeastern Utah that covers roughly 512 acres. It has a name, the Sherman Ranch, officially. But nobody calls it that. The world knows it as Skinwalker Ranch. And if you walk its perimeter on a clear night and stand at the edge of the property, looking out across the flat expanse of high desert toward the Uinta Mountains in the distance, you will feel something. Most people who have stood in that spot describe it the same way. Like being watched. Like something ancient and aware is present in the air itself. Something that knows you are there. Something that is deciding what to do about it. This is not a story about a TV show. The cameras and the production crews and the carefully edited dramatic moments, that is one version of Skinwalker Ranch. But it is not the whole version. The whole version goes back much further. It involves a family that lost everything. A secret government-connected investigation that lasted years. A Native American people who have been warning outsiders about this land for centuries. And a series of events, documented, witnessed, and in some cases physically recorded, that have not been explained by any scientific framework we currently possess. The signal coming from this land is cold, strange, and very old. And it has been transmitting for longer than anyone alive can remember. To understand Skinwalker Ranch, you first need to understand where it sits. The Uinta Basin is a high desert valley in northeastern Utah, bounded by the Uinta Mountains to the north and the Book Cliffs to the south. It is remote. It is geologically unusual. One of the largest natural oil deposits in the United States lies beneath it. The soil is alkaline. The weather is extreme. In winter, temperatures plunge far below freezing. In summer, the valley bakes. It is not a comfortable place. But people have lived here for thousands of years. The Ute Nation, one of the oldest continuous cultures in North America, has inhabited the Uinta Basin for centuries. And for centuries, they have maintained a very specific relationship with one particular piece of land. They did not go there. The Ute people have a concept, a being, known as the Skinwalker. In their tradition, this is not a legend in the casual sense. It is not a ghost story told around a fire. It is a description of something real. A shapeshifter. An entity capable of taking the form of animals. Something that travels between worlds. Something malevolent, intelligent, and ancient. The land that would become known as Skinwalker Ranch was considered, by the Ute, to be a corridor. A place where the boundary between this world and whatever lies beyond it is thin. Where things come through that should not. They called it the path of the Skinwalker. And they warned every generation that followed, do not build there. Do not settle there. Do not disturb what lives there. For many years, nobody listened. For most of the 20th century, the property was owned by the Myers family. Kenneth Myers and his wife lived on the land for decades. Neighbors who knew them described the couple as quiet and private. They kept to themselves. They rarely spoke about the property. What is notable is what they did not do. They did not allow visitors. They posted no trespassing signs extensively around the perimeter. They fenced the property with an unusual density of barbed wire. Not the casual fencing of a working ranch, something more deliberate. Something meant to keep things in or keep things out, though exactly which has never been made clear. Kenneth Myers died, and the property passed out of the family. In 1994, it was purchased by a family from Montana who had heard that the land was productive and affordable. A ranching family with experience, ambition, and no knowledge of what the Ute people had warned about for generations. Their name was Sherman. And what happened to them in the 2 years that followed has become one of the most thoroughly documented paranormal accounts in modern history. Terry Sherman was a practical man. He and his wife Gwen moved to the property with their 2 teenage children in 1994, bringing their cattle with them. They had big plans. The land was good. The price was right. They were ready to work. The first indication that something was wrong came almost immediately. On one of their early days at the property, the family was outside when they saw something in the sky. A large object. Silent. Moving in ways that no aircraft they had ever seen could move, accelerating instantly to impossible speed, stopping dead, changing direction at 90-degree angles without slowing. Terry Sherman had been around aircraft his entire life. He had never seen anything like it. He told himself it was something explainable. Military testing, maybe. The Uinta Basin was not far from certain government facilities. He let it go. Then the cattle started dying. Over the 2 years the Sherman family lived on the property, they lost approximately 50 head of cattle under circumstances that remain medically unexplained. Some animals simply vanished, 1,000-pound bulls disappearing overnight from closed, fenced enclosures with no tracks, no blood, no signs of forced entry. Gone. Others were found dead with what appeared to be surgical incisions, precision cuts removing specific organs, with no blood present anywhere on or around the carcass. No tool marks consistent with any known blade. No tracks from any predator. Some carcasses showed evidence that they had been drained of blood entirely, with no pooling anywhere near the body. Veterinarians who examined the animals had no explanation. But the cattle were only part of it. The family began seeing lights in the field at night, orbs, they described them. Moving with apparent intelligence, hovering, disappearing. Sometimes blue. Sometimes orange. Once, Terry Sherman watched an orb approach a fence post and seemingly pass through the solid metal as though it were not there. There were creatures. On one occasion, the family encountered an animal they described as wolf-like but impossibly large, 3 times the size of any wolf Terry had ever seen, with yellowish eyes that reflected no light the way animal eyes should. Terry's son reported that the creature seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They fired at it at close range with rifles. The bullets appeared to have no effect. The animal walked calmly away. The most disturbing events involved what the family described as portals. Areas in the field where the air seemed to open. Where a shimmer would appear, not unlike a heat mirage, but circular, vertical, and present on cold days when no mirage should form. Twice, Terry Sherman witnessed what he described as a dark tunnel appearing in thin air, with something moving inside it, before it closed and vanished. He stopped sleeping. His wife refused to go outside after dark. His children refused to talk about what they had experienced. After 2 years, the Sherman family sold the property and left. Terry Sherman has described those years as the worst of his life. He has also, consistently, refused to dismiss or minimize what he experienced. "I know what I saw," he said in one of his rare interviews. "I know it happened." He has never returned to the property. The man who bought the property from the Sherman family in 1996 was not a rancher. His name was Robert Bigelow. Bigelow was a billionaire real estate developer from Las Vegas with a deep, serious, and long-standing interest in the paranormal and in UFO phenomena. He was not a fringe figure. He was a businessman who had funded legitimate scientific research for decades and had connections at the highest levels of the United States government's interest in aerospace anomalies. Bigelow founded an organization called the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, and deployed a team of scientists, investigators, and former law enforcement and military personnel to the ranch with a simple mandate: find out what was happening. The NIDS team lived on and around the property for years. They installed cameras, sensors, and monitoring equipment. They documented events, collected physical samples, and filed detailed reports. What they found was extraordinary, and deeply frustrating. The phenomena appeared to be aware of observation. When cameras were set up to record specific areas where events had occurred, the events stopped in those areas and moved elsewhere. When investigators gathered in force, nothing happened. When someone was alone and had no recording equipment, that was consistently when the most significant events occurred. It was as though whatever was producing the phenomena understood the investigation and was actively subverting it. The NIDS team documented cattle mutilations that matched the Sherman family's accounts precisely. They witnessed anomalous lights. They recorded magnetic anomalies and electromagnetic disturbances that had no conventional source. On one occasion, a NIDS investigator reported seeing a large, dark, tunnel-like shape hovering above the pasture, matching exactly what Terry Sherman had described years earlier. A second investigator, standing nearby, saw nothing. Same location. Same moment. One person sees it, one person does not. The NIDS investigation concluded after several years with a document that has never been publicly released in full. The summary conclusions described the ranch as exhibiting a genuine and persistent unexplained phenomenon, something that resisted every attempt at conventional explanation and appeared to be interactive, intelligent, and intentional. Robert Bigelow eventually sold the property in 2016. But by then, the ranch had attracted the attention of people in places much closer to power than a private research institute. In 2017, the New York Times published an investigation that shocked the United States defense and intelligence community. It revealed the existence of a classified program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, a secretive Pentagon initiative that had been investigating unidentified aerial phenomena for years. The program had been funded through a black budget line item secured in part by Senator Harry Reid of Nevada, who happened to be a personal friend of Robert Bigelow. And a significant portion of the research contracted through AATIP had gone to Bigelow's aerospace company. Much of that research was conducted at Skinwalker Ranch. The revelations confirmed what some investigators had suspected for years, that whatever was happening at the ranch was not merely a local curiosity. It was something the United States government had decided was worth taking seriously enough to study with classified funds. Luis Elizondo, who ran AATIP, has spoken publicly about the unusual nature of the Skinwalker investigations. He has described the phenomena as exhibiting what he calls the 5 observables, characteristics of movement and behavior that do not conform to any known human or natural technology. He has also said something that, coming from a former senior intelligence official, carries significant weight. He has said that the phenomena appear to be responsive to human consciousness. That what happens at Skinwalker Ranch seems to change based on who is watching, what they expect to see, and what emotional state they are in when they encounter it. If that is true, if a phenomenon exists that is somehow aware of and responsive to human attention, then it is something entirely outside the framework of any physics we currently understand. In 2016, the ranch was purchased by Brandon Fugel, a Utah real estate developer who chose, unlike his predecessors, to go completely public with the investigation. Fugel invited scientists, researchers, and cameras onto the property. The History Channel series that followed, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, brought the location to a global audience. But beneath the television production, a serious scientific investigation has continued. The team has documented measurable anomalies in the soil, elevated levels of tritium, a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, in specific areas of the ranch, particularly around a mesa on the property known as the Triangle. Tritium at those concentrations should not occur naturally in soil. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed anomalous structures beneath the surface of the mesa, cavities, chambers, and tunnel-like formations that do not correspond to any known geological formation in the region and have not been fully explored. Equipment failures are routine on the ranch. Cameras, drones, communications devices, and scientific instruments malfunction, lose power, or behave erratically in specific locations on the property, locations that correspond precisely to the areas where the Sherman family and the NIDS team reported the most intense activity decades earlier. The team has captured UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, on multiple cameras simultaneously. Whatever these objects are, they do not move like aircraft, do not appear on conventional radar, and have not been identified despite analysis by former military and aerospace professionals. And the cattle mutilations have continued. Under the current ownership, animals on the ranch have been found with the same precision injuries that have been documented here for 30 years. No explanation has been found. No perpetrator has been identified. The ranch is still transmitting. Whatever signal it is sending, nobody has decoded it yet. Every serious investigation of Skinwalker Ranch has eventually confronted the same uncomfortable question. What is causing this? The theories range from the scientifically plausible to the genuinely extraordinary. The geological hypothesis suggests that the unusual underground structure of the Uinta Basin, its deposits of oil, gas, and mineral formations, may produce electromagnetic effects that generate hallucinations, equipment malfunction, and unusual atmospheric phenomena. Some researchers have pointed to natural radioactive decay in the rock as a potential source of tritium. Others have suggested that piezoelectric effects, electrical charges produced when certain crystals are compressed, might explain some of the light phenomena. These explanations cover some of what has been reported. They do not cover all of it. The UAP hypothesis holds that what is occurring at Skinwalker Ranch is related to the broader phenomenon of unidentified aerial phenomena, objects or craft of unknown origin operating in Earth's atmosphere and apparently interested in specific geographic locations. The ranch sits in a geological bowl with unusual properties. It is possible, in theory, that something is drawn to it. The interdimensional hypothesis, which has been proposed by serious researchers including some with academic credentials, suggests that the ranch sits at a location where the fabric of physical reality is, for reasons not yet understood, thinner than elsewhere. Where phenomena from adjacent dimensions or realities occasionally bleed through. The Skinwalker portal concept of the Ute people, expressed in the language of theoretical physics. And then there is the consciousness hypothesis, the one that Elizondo and others have pointed toward. That whatever is here is not a geological effect, not a craft, not a dimensional bleed. But something intelligent. Something that perceives. Something that interacts. Not a place where strange things happen. but a place where something lives. The Ute people warned everyone. For centuries before a single camera, a single researcher, or a single television crew arrived on that land, the indigenous people who knew it best said the same thing in every generation. Do not go there. Do not disturb what lives there. It will not end well. The Sherman family ignored that warning, not out of arrogance, but because they had never heard it. They paid a price that took years to recover from. The NIDS team investigated with discipline and rigor and ultimately had to conclude that what they encountered exceeded their ability to explain. The United States government spent classified money studying it and still does not have an answer. And whatever is there, geological anomaly, non-human intelligence, thin place in the universe, or something we do not yet have a category for, is still there. 512 acres of Utah desert that has been documented, monitored, investigated, and filmed more extensively than perhaps any other location on Earth. And it is still not understood. The signal from Skinwalker Ranch is cold and clear, and it has been broadcasting since before anyone alive was born. We just do not know yet what it is trying to say.